Alright everyone, the Burisma scandal comes back to haunt the Biden crime family. There are new emails, link in the description, archived of course, you can read through it. It's a fairly long, dense article, which also meanders a little bit. Fox News really needs to get better editors because sometimes they say in 10 paragraphs what could be compressed into 2 or 3. It's something that chaps my ass because I've actually got to read through the article. I can't just read the title like some people do and then commentate on it. Unless it's a no-brainer title that's just clickbait, in which case you're just talking about the legacy media using clickbait. Those videos are a little bit easier. They require a little bit less studiousness. In this case, we've got additional materials now showing we already knew that this happened, but there's more evidence of it now, which allows for further investigation. Like, there's some meat on the bones. I don't expect in the end anything to happen to Joe or Hunter as a result of their various high crimes and misdemeanors. I don't expect anything to happen other than in the political realm. They're not gonna, you're not gonna see Joe Biden put in prison or something like that. You're not gonna see him removed from office, even though at this point there's certainly enough for them to impeach him. It looks like the Republicans are going to slow walk on the impeachment process too, which is absolutely asinine considering what Joe has done already is already actionable on 2 or 3 different levels. Here's the timeline. Hunter gets a seat on the board at Burisma. It's a Ukrainian energy firm. And the Bidens make a huge amount of money off of this. And people put 2 and 2 together because they're like, well, Hunter Biden doesn't know anything about the energy sector. He doesn't know anything about engineering or any of these other things. Why is he on the board in the first place? The quid pro quo is that you get Hunter Biden on the energy board and you give him lavish gifts, which are literally alluded to in some of his fucking emails, and we're not sure what those were. It could be blood diamonds or prostitutes or a fucking ton of crack. A 1-ton crack boulder straight from Sleazy P. Martini. Probably, that's likely. They gave him a bunch of crack. Probably not a ton. Maybe he was worth 50 pounds of purest crack cocaine. Joe Biden is his daddy. Well, why do you want him on the energy board? It's very coincidental that as soon as he was on the board, not long after, Viktor Shokin, the prosecutor there, gets labeled corrupt and then fired. Because Biden complained explicitly about him in his official political role. Well, I'm not going to give the Ukrainians any form of aid unless they fire this prosecutor. They're not going to be able to get this is VP Biden doing his political thing. They're not going to be able to get the aid that we promised them unless Viktor Shokin is fired. I'm very, very concerned about him. At the time it was couched, and it was already a big story at the time, it was couched as Viktor Shokin is corrupt. So the Ukrainians need to clean out their prosecutorial corruption. Now, I'm sure that there are other prosecutors in the nation of Ukraine who are corrupt, right? Why did Joe Biden not target any of them? Why is it specifically the one that was looking into Burisma? Right about the time that his son ended up on the board, despite having absolutely no qualifications other than who his dad was. No reasonable person would suspect that this is anything but nepotistic. That this is anything other than a United States official at nearly the highest rung of power, the Vice President of the United States, engaging in personal diplomacy on behalf of a middleman, who happens to be his son, in order to clear the way for him to grab up huge amounts of money and take gifts from foreign states that in some cases probably went to Joe, which is also additionally illegal. This is a major scandal, and I can't understand why any person would have enough cognitive dissonance, even like a diehard Democrat. So they're like Team Joe. They like the dude. Can you at least admit that this is a little bit weird? I mean, I go a lot further than that, but even if you got cognitive dissonance, you've got a motive. You've got public statements about Viktor Shokin himself and from Shokin regarding Burisma. You've got an unqualified individual around that exact time put on their board despite not having any training in anything related to the energy industry in any manner, or even tangentially related to the energy industry, like mathematics or something like that, or environmental remediation studies. We're looking into the impact that our mining happens to have on the local wildlife here in Ukraine. Okay, well then at the very least there's a reason why he's there. It might be a kooky reason, it might be a goofy reason, but there is one. The only reason is because of who his daddy was. Public official capable of pressuring the government there to knock him out of the way. And then, of course, that same administration, now the Biden presidency, so-called, is freeing up hundreds of billions of dollars for the same country. Do you think that this could possibly be a kickback of some sort? A money laundering scheme, at least at some level? I certainly think that it is. Look at who benefits from it. Russia benefits from it. Maybe they were involved too. Ukraine certainly benefits from it. Hunter and his daddy benefited from it. Burisma certainly did. Oh, well, and the investors, Western investors that work with companies like Burisma, they're happy. They're perfectly fine. What they did is they took out the person who was ballsy enough to investigate the company because they wanted to use that company in order to make money, and in order to cater political favors. Biden certainly did not just do this pertinent to the Burisma dealings. Although I'm sure that some of those other business partners Joe totally never met, despite us having pictures of those meetings. I'm sure that some of them may have visited Ukraine at some contemporary point around that period. It's entirely possible. Or Burisma execs happened to drop in on the meeting between Hunter and one of these other business associates, and all of a sudden Hunter found that he was given $5 million bonus. It's inexplicable how these things coincidentally line up. He was given a diamond-studded portrait of himself or something that he then pulls the diamonds off and pawns, because it's the whole point, and evaluated at $3.5 million or something like that. This is the way that big business corruption tends to work, and what you need is to have an independent prosecutor capable of looking into it. So if you don't want that to happen, if you're one of the people involved in the crime and you happen to have political connections, you simply get him canned. Hey, I'll give you lots of aid. Oh, you'll have more than $1 billion worth of aid, don't worry. But I want this dude gone. That was effectively what Joe Biden explicitly told the Ukrainian government. He threatened to hold up aid to Ukraine if they did not fire specifically the one person looking into the company that Hunter Biden then sat on the board with. It's as clear-cut as possible. Under normal circumstances, a prosecutor would already be looking into this. Instead, you have a group of Republican partisans here and nobody in Ukraine. Right now, there's a war going on, so they've got bigger priorities. How good for Biden, by the way. He can pay back the favor plus interest because he doesn't care what happens to the U.S. people's collective tax wealth. He's got his. He probably grabbed up 50 mil through his son's connections with Burisma at some point. And Hunter cleaned up, too. How the fuck do you think he was affording so many drugs? So many hookers? He was partying like every night. Well, I mean, if you're spending $1,000 a night just existing, then that Burisma salary, while high, starts to look a little bit smaller. I think there might have been other money involved with his particular lifestyle. How did he make all these millions of dollars? Well, the world will probably never know, because the one person who is crazy enough to go and look into it would probably be killed by Zelensky right now if it was anyone other than Viktor Shokin, who already got canned. If some other prosecutor decided to look into this and demand records on Burisma's dealings with Hunter, they would be killed, or they would be drafted and sent to the front lines, with no air support, of course, or they would disappear, in which case they're in a gulag, possibly. That's about all. Peace out.